Hey, I'm Hunt, and this is Hunt on LSU, your channel for LSU Fighting Tiger football talk. Enjoy the video. We want you to leave a comment below, hit that like button, and subscribe right below the video. Enjoy.
At this point, I think you can just about taste it. Like, it's just about here. A lot of folks heading to Las Vegas today or tomorrow. A lot of folks kind of checking out on their work responsibilities as football season approaches. A lot of folks going to get into the fridge for a cold pop tonight and watch a little college football. It's here. We're here. You got Jimmy and Charlie in Vegas. Matt's going to do a little bit of work from the airport on AFR this afternoon and then fly up there. You'll have OTB from Vegas tomorrow morning. So we have made it. We are here. It's LSU and USC, and we are certainly ready to talk about that. I want to get into this Southern Cal offense a little bit today as we start things here. Lincoln Riley has a reputation in college football. And I think if you were to ask 10 college football fans about Lincoln Riley, they would all give you some variation of the same answer. Been a head coach at 2 big-time programs, score a lot of points, win a lot of Heisman trophies, defenses aren't very good, hasn't won the big game. That's kind of what Lincoln Riley's MO is. And it's probably fair because we've got a pretty large sample size here. It's not something that's been boiled down to like 2 years. We've seen Lincoln Riley in action now for about a decade on the big stage in college football as a coordinator or a head coach. But I wanted to go a little bit more in depth into what Lincoln Riley is because as I've told you a lot, like I don't spend a lot of time watching non-SEC games. I just don't have a lot of time to do it on my Saturdays. I've got to prep, and then I've got to get to campus, and then I've got to do a 2-hour pregame show, and then LSU plays for 4 hours, and then I've got to do an 1.5-hour postgame show. And so for that time of 7 or 8 hours, it's hard for me to watch other games. So when I do, I'm watching Alabama Ole Miss, I'm watching Auburn, Georgia, I'm watching Florida, Tennessee. I'm not usually watching Oklahoma, Iowa State, or USC against Colorado. Like I don't do a lot of that. So to sit here and tell you that I've watched a ton of Lincoln Riley offense would not be true. But I have done a lot of research over the last week. And Lincoln Riley has the best offensive body of work in college football collectively in the last 10 years. He does. You're talking about a guy who became the offensive coordinator at East Carolina as a very, very young coach. And he set more than 50 school records at East Carolina. They were in the top 10 nationally in scoring offense, in passing yardage, in third down efficiency. They were great on offense at East Carolina. So Bob Stoops called and said, hey, I need you to come up to Oklahoma. And when I think of Lincoln Riley at Oklahoma, I think of Baker Mayfield and Kyler Murray. I think of the air raid. I think of them scoring a ton of points. I think of those 2 Heisman trophies. I think of that Rose Bowl against Georgia. And obviously, I think of Jalen Hurts in the end there with LSU in 2019 where their defense couldn't stop anybody at all. But Lincoln Riley's offenses were a little bit more than just Kyler Murray and just Baker Mayfield and just Jalen Hurts and just the air raid. Far from it. I mean, Joe Mixon set an Oklahoma all-purpose yardage record under Lincoln Riley. Samaje Perine became Oklahoma's career rushing leader under Lincoln Riley. Now, I get it. There are a lot of you that are listening to me. They're going, I don't care if Oklahoma can run the ball against Kansas and Baylor. That's not real football, and that's fine. Like I'm not going to fight that. I would not stand here and tell you that I think the Big 12 is putting out 85 Bears-style defenses. But it does tell me that, like, he does want to run the ball. He does want a modicum of balance. And Brian Kelly talked on Monday about making USC one-dimensional. How do we make them one-dimensional? And there were a couple teams that were kind of able to do that last year to an extent, and they were the 2 teams that held USC to season-low point totals. That was 20 points 2 times. It was against Notre Dame, and it was against UCLA. And against Notre Dame, when you look at the rushing numbers, they ran for over 120 yards in that game, and that looks fine, but it took them a ton of carries to get to it. The rushing yardage, when it was all said and done, per carry was under 3 yards per carry against Notre Dame. That's stopping the run. And UCLA absolutely swallowed USC's running game whole. They had 22 carries in that game for 3 yards. 3 yards. So there were two teams that were able to shut down the run and make things one-dimensional in the pass, and they were able to slow things down against USC. That's goal number one. But we know that USC's not going to hand the ball to Woody Marks 26 times in this game. Woody Marks was a Mike Leach back at Mississippi State who was better in the passing game anyway. It's the passing game that is the scariest threat that USC has. And I'll be candid with you. Like, y'all know I made some waves yesterday on my show. And but look, I feel okay about LSU up front on defense. I feel good about the linebackers. I feel okay about the front. I feel great about the offensive line. I feel great about the running backs. I feel good about the wide receivers. And I feel good about Garrett Nussmeier. There's really only one piece to this team that still gives me the heebie-jeebies. And y'all know that's the corners. I'm just a little concerned. I am. I don't see Patrick Peterson. Duh. I don't see Morris Claiborne. I don't see Tre'Davious White. I don't see Derek Stingley. I don't see Christian Fulton. I don't see Jalen Mills. I don't see Thorold Simon. Like, I see some guys that are at best unproven, at worst have been part of some really bad defenses. So I'm concerned about that, and I'll be honest about it. But I wanted to look at USC's receivers and kind of see what that group looked like. And I came up with an LSU comp for these guys to kind of help you, because I know you as the LSU fan, if I run down and I say, Zachariah Brands, Deuce Robinson, Jacoby Lane, Mekhi Lemon, and Kyrian Hudson, you go, well, I never heard of any of those people. Who cares? And so I don't want to do that. I'm going to give you a comp for these guys and just kind of give you an idea of what these guys look like in pads. Now, keep in mind, this group is not a proven group that's coming back. This has not been a group that's been productive. USC lost 4 of their top 6 pass catchers from last year. Those guys are gone. All I'm looking at in terms of these guys is potential, because they don't have a lot of proven on-the-field statistics and highlights to go from. Some, but not a ton. These were not the primary guys last year for Caleb Williams. They will be for Miller Moss. Number one on the list, absolutely number one on the list, is Zachariah Branch. 100%. He's 5'10", 175 pounds. You heard yesterday we had Mark Culkin on. He called him a human joystick. And I watched some highlights from Zachariah Branch from last year. The LSU comp that immediately leapt off the screen for me was Skylar Green. He's undersized at 5'10", but he is incredibly smooth and shifty. Y'all remember Skylar. Some of y'all that are real young may not. But if you remember Skylar, he was a little undersized. He was the number 3 wide receiver on the 03 team. You had Michael Clayton. You had Devery Henderson. And they got Skylar Green the ball in the screen game. He scored a touchdown on the jet sweep in the national championship game, and he was a great punt returner. As good a punt returner as I've ever seen at LSU. And that's what Zachariah Branch reminds me of. He's so shifty and smooth and slippery. They get him the ball around the line of scrimmage a lot. He runs back kicks and punts. You got to watch this guy. I mean, he's going to be a factor in the game. Deuce Robinson is a sophomore, and he's listed as a wide receiver by USC. If you look at like Phil Steele's preview that I've got here, if you look at his recruiting profile, he's listed as a tight end. It's because he's massive. He's 6'6", 215 pounds. He was the number 1 tight end of the country in the 2023 class. And I know that none of you have seen this player, but you all know who I'm talking about. He does remind me a little bit of Tre'Davious Green. He's just huge. I don't know if he runs quite as well. I don't know if he jumps quite as well. But I can't think of an LSU wide receiver that pops right to my mind that was 6'6", 215. Like, Stephon Sullivan was pretty big, but he wasn't the number 1 player in the nation coming out of high school at his position like Deuce Robinson is. This dude's legit. He's a big, big target for USC for sure. They got Jacoby Lane, who's another sophomore. All these guys are sophomores. Zachariah Branch is a sophomore. Deuce Robinson's a sophomore. Jacoby Lane's a sophomore. He's 6'4", 195, and has this crazy vertical leap that everybody's talked about that I've read up on. He kind of reminds me frame-wise of Malachi Dupree. Pretty big, pretty long, a little bit skinny, but he's got some highlights on the reel where he goes up and makes catches in the end zone above people. And that's kind of what you're looking for there. The only like real veteran that I see on this receiving core is Kyrian Hudson, who he's a junior. maybe it's because he wears number 10, and Jeray Jenkins' name just kind of popped in my name because the 10 was there. But he's like 6'1", and he doesn't run super awesome, and he wasn't a 100-star recruit, and he hasn't been wildly productive in 3 years. But they threw him the ball a few times, and he made some plays, and that's kind of what Jeray Jenkins is for a really long time here in Baton Rouge. So that's kind of, those are high-end comps. I know I'm not going to compare anybody to Kadron Boone and James Wright and like I said, Stephon. So I'm not going to compare guys to LSU's fourth-team wide receivers who didn't play very much. I'm talking about the high end of these guys' potential. That's what they look like in pads. So it's a balanced receiving core that Lincoln Riley's got. And candidly, I'm a little concerned about LSU's ability to cover, and we all have seen that. But you've got to, if you're being on the optimistic side, which I'm going to try to be for the next 48 hours, then you look at what LSU's defense did against the Tiger offense, a lot of camp in the 11-on-11s, and you hold out hope that this defense is going to create enough issues at the point of attack, is going to get back there against a young, I shouldn't say young, probably inexperienced is a better word for Miller Moss, quarterback, and you can cover some of these guys who are not necessarily proven stud receivers. They've got a lot of stars by their name in high school, and they're sophomores that are expected to show up and be great players this year. That's their, Deshaun Womack for LSU in a different position. But that's kind of what it looks like, and I expect USC most of the night to spread the field and to try to get it to these guys a lot of times around the line of scrimmage, especially Zachariah Branch, but sometimes down the field wherever Lincoln Riley sees it fit to try to take a chance. And he's gained enough credibility over the course of this decade to understand that the players change, but the results generally stay the same. I mean, you're talking about in points per game, Lincoln Riley, I'll just go backwards from 2023 moving backwards. They were third in the country last year at 41.8 points per game. They were third the year before that at 41.4, so about the exact same, the two Caleb Williams years out in Southern California. The last year at Oklahoma, where he had Rattler and Caleb Williams, they were eighth in the country in scoring offense at 39.1 points per game. Go back to 2020, sixth in the country, 43 PPGs. 2019, that was the Jalen Hurts team that LSU played. They were sixth in the country in points per game. They scored 42 a game. The year before that, they were best in the country, number one in the nation in 2018. That was the year Kyler Murray was the quarterback. They scored 48 points per game and topped the country. And then in 2017, third. So if I go back in chronological order about the offenses in terms of scoring that he's put out there, third, eighth, sixth, first, third. That's really, really good. And I feel like as I sit here today and we're starting to talk about this game, LSU's offense is going to have to go score. Because no matter how good you feel about LSU's revamped defense with a new coaching staff and guys in different roles and a little bit of a talent influx and some guys growing up and the aggressive nature of things, no matter how good you feel about that, looking at those statistics, not over 1 year, not over one game, not over one matchup last year, this is a total of 7 years I just combed through at 2 different schools with 5 different quarterbacks, and every single year, Lincoln Riley's offenses are in the top 8 in the country. Every year. So to sit here and suggest that, I think the defense is going to be really good, they might be able to hold them to 20 points. I don't see it. I think LSU can win the game. Still weighing my pick for tomorrow. I absolutely think LSU can win the game. But it's going to take 35 points to do it, in my eye. We'll talk more about this team as we move through the next 24 hours, or I guess 26 hours. We'll be done talking about the game on these airwaves. But it's a really good offense. I'm hopeful that LSU's defense is there to answer the bell. And that will transition nicely into our next segment, because I talked to Harold Perkins on Tuesday. I talked to Greg Penn on Tuesday, and they kind of discussed some of the different things that they've been working on and some of the different things that they've implemented. Harold Perkins was really timid in answering the questions because he didn't want to reveal anything. He's like, look, they're listening. I can't tell y'all any of this stuff. But we did get enough out of them about some of the things that they're trying to accomplish on defense, and it piqued my interest. I've got to cite up a piece up on LouisianaSports.net on it. Hey, thanks for watching Hunt on LSU. Before you get out of here, do us a couple of favors. Hit that like button, leave your comments below, and subscribe to the channel for all your Fighting Tiger football talk. See you next time.